Michael, what's your reaction to Nadler's decision and his reasoning, citing generational change?
He did the right thing. We should be applauding this. Democratic voters have been calling for this, which is he's nearly 70. He's 78 years old, I believe. And so he's stepping aside so the next generation can step up. And we should be appreciative of the record that he has provided while in the Congress. Like, he's fought for workers' rights and LGBT rights and all these very important things that matter in our society. So we should appreciate that and appreciate the fact that he is stepping aside and doing the right thing.
Do you feel like other Democrats will follow his lead?
I hope they do.
Like Chuck Schumer?
Oh, man, that's tough.
They do. Expand on that.
I hope they do, because I think we have a bench that's ready to step up. We have an insanely wide group of talented candidates ready to step forward across the board, not just in Congress, but also state houses and governor's mansions as well, specifically in New Jersey and in Virginia.
Is that what's needed to make Democrats more competitive?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But we have the candidates. We just need sort of the older guard to step aside when necessary.
And meantime, Susan, there are several aging Republican lawmakers as well. Why do you think it seems that this generational shift is more of a focus in the Democratic Party versus Republican Party?
Well, I think in the Democratic Party, frankly, you just see a lot more energy. They play better to their primary voters. They're finding new voters who tend to be younger. If you look at Mamdani's win in New York's mayoral primary, he really turned out a lot of people who had never voted before under the age of 30. So I see the shift going for the Democrats. I wish it would happen for the Republicans, but...
Is it a non-issue for Republicans?
Well, when you have a president, again, who's still serving and is going to be in his 80s by the time his term is completed, yeah, that's not necessarily pushing someone out of the way for their age as far as the Republican Party looks at it. But they should. It's time for new generations of leadership to come in. I mean, some folks step down because they have to. I mean, age is getting in the way of them doing their job. And yet you see a Joni Ernst stepping aside. And I find that really interesting because she's young. She's 55 years old. She has another career ahead of her, most certainly. But it'll be interesting to see who steps in and fills that void on the Republican side. I
mean, speaking of Zohran Mamdani, which Susan brought up, and this generational shift, Politico is reporting that Republicans are giddy about the New York City mayoral candidate frontrunner, a self-described democratic socialist, and that there are many Democrats who are concerned that his candidacy could hurt them and the party as it's facing a messaging and ideology divide. What do you think, Mike?
I love this conversation. The Wall Street Journal just came out with a poll this week that said 70% of Americans think the American dream is dead. In Donald Trump's economy, there's no world in which Democrats should be worried about the mayor of New York City being the representative of sort of the Democratic Party. The reality is that everything is unaffordable. Housing is unaffordable. Food costs are skyrocketing. Most Americans are struggling financially in Donald Trump's economy. Democrats should make that point instead of worrying about the mayor of New York City. That's the reality.
Yeah, but the reality also is that senior Democrats from New York City, including your former boss, have not yet embraced the Democratic frontrunner for the mayor of New York City. So
that's true.
And this candidate in itself. Now, I won't argue with you on the broader theory, but when you're looking at Mamdani and his brand of democratic socialism, it's a problem for a lot of New Yorkers. There's a reason why we see 2 or 3 other independent candidates in addition to a Republican candidate. And they still are they're not competitive necessarily in the race, but there's a lot of funding going to them because there's a lot of Democrats concerned about how Mamdani, with his lack of experience, frankly, will be able to run New York City. And it is playing into Republicans' hands because at the end of the day, he won't be able to do the big things. He won't be able to increase taxes or get free buses or free grocery stores. Those are the easy things to kind of just talk about affordability. But how will he manage the city with no executive experience? What will he do with community policing? That's what you watch. Does he pick up the snow, shovel the snow? Does the garbage get picked up? And that's where his inexperience, frankly, is going to shine.
Are there risks with Democrats? Do they see risks in terms of the establishment backing Mamdani?
No, there are lessons to be learned here, all right? Forget labels. Most Americans, I don't think, care about labels. This is what New York voters said. A 1-bedroom apartment is $5,000 to $6,000 a month. Most people cannot afford that. This was an affordability election. So the lesson for national Democrats is to make all of these elections affordability elections. In Virginia, in that gubernatorial race, in New Jersey as well, those are both about the economy and affordability. That is the lesson.
But the lesson is that the front runner for mayor of New York City is living in a rent-stabilized apartment.
Yeah, but that's
definitely making way more than the average New Yorker.
But the point here, but none of those things matter. The point is that people can't afford to live. The average voter can't afford to live. What we're saying, what people in Washington, in the Beltway, and the elites are saying is that that guy is a democratic socialist. So we're going to make Democrats pay for that. You know what voters are saying? I go to the grocery store and pay $500 for a week's worth of groceries. That is a problem. I need someone to help me. That is a lesson. And by the way, in 2018, when Democrats took the House, that was also about affordability and health care. All right? There are lessons to be learned from our previous victories and how we can move forward here. Instead of shying away from Mamdani and these titles that elites put on him, the reality is that people can't afford to live today. So what lessons can Democrats take from that?
So, Susan, you mentioned the affordable housing piece there and that he lives in a rent-stabilized housing development. I mean, does that make him more relatable to people who are also struggling to make ends meet if that's where he needs to live, too? Because he can't afford.
No, hold on. There's a difference there. He doesn't need it. As a matter of fact, he wouldn't probably qualify for it under previous laws. He got into it at a certain age, and when he was making less money, yes. But given the fact that he is making a combined income of hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can talk about affordability, but you shouldn't look like a hypocrite when you're doing it. That's what it comes down to. And he should have moved out of his rent.
Well, I think a lot of people would say, billionaire president.
Yeah, but come on, like, this is all nonsense.
No, hold on. I'm talking about one candidate running for mayor, not a national headline, because you know for months and months, I've been saying the affordability issue is the #1 issue out there. When Americans are paying with credit cards instead of debit cards for their groceries, meaning they are paying interest on their groceries, that is a big systematic problem for people in this country.
Well, I think you're both saying the same thing, and that
this is the whole point.
Well, we have a hypocrite running, and then the other one.
But listen, I'm not in ad hominem attacks. Here's the point. Voters said, I'm not going to go for Cuomo. I'm not going to go for the current mayor. I'm going to go for this guy that has a vision for helping me improve my life. If the Wall Street Journal this week found that 70% of Americans say the American dream is dead under the Trump economy, the message of affordability is the issue of our time. And it's the issue that every candidate should be talking about. Now, we can get into this pocketbook checking of certain candidates. That's meaningless.
But based on what you're saying, every Democrat, at least from New York City, should be embracing and endorsing.
That's not what I said at all.
Okay.
What I said is that this is an affordability election, and that is the focus.
And you can continue the debate in the commercial break, because I got to take a quick break. Susan Del Percio, Michael Hardaway. I do